the title of my talk today is Dominant Caste and Territory in South India, the case of the Kammas of Andhrapradesh. Since my background is in social geography, I've studied caste from a spatial perspective. The concept of territory, which can be defined as social, economic, and political appropriation of space, is very often absent in the existing literature on caste. This argument is all the more relevant in the case of Andhra Pradesh, since the demand for a separate Telangana state has very much to do with these questions of caste domination. Traditionally, the Kammas are dominant in coastal Andhra, whereas the Reddys are dominant in the interior regions of Telangana and Rayalaseema. Both these castes have been dominating the politics of Andhra Pradesh since the formation of the state in 1956. So both these castes are originally farming communities, in varna terms, shudras. So their ritual status is relatively low, but they claim that they are kshatriyas. Both Kammas and Reddys are mostly land-owning communities. The main difference is that Kamma property is concentrated in the agriculturally rich Krishna and Godavari deltas, where land is fertile and irrigated, whereas Reddys own land in the arid areas of the Deccan Plateau, where irrigation is rare. So in terms of assets, Kammas are more prosperous, but in terms of political power, the Reddys have been dominating the state through their control of the Congress party since independence. It's only in the 1980s, with the creation of a regional party called the Telugu Desam Party, the TDP, that the ex-movie star N.T. Ramarao, known as NTR, became the first Kamma chief minister of Andhra Pradesh, followed by his son-in-law Chandrababu Naidu. Kammas have a very high propensity to migrate, like wherever they see new investment opportunities, whether it's new irrigated areas or when they go to the cities, it's for business or real estate. They have also migrated to other South Indian states like Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and of course abroad, especially in the US. And it's interesting, since we are in Princeton, I should mention that New Jersey has the highest concentration of Kammas in America, along with California. So in the US, they are entrepreneurs or they work in the IT industry, and they are quite dominant in the Telugu community. Like they control the Telugu Association of North America, known as TANA. And the Reddys, in fact, resented this domination, and they created their own organization called American Telugu Association. So this rivalry between the two dominant castes of Andhra Pradesh exists even in the US. So this was just a short introduction to what I'd like to talk about today, which is basically the link between migration and upward social mobility. The aim of my research was to redefine the concept of dominant caste, which was first studied in the 1950s by M.N. Srinivas at the village level. But I wanted to make it relevant in contemporary India by taking into account the rapid urbanization and the increased social and spatial mobility of the elites. So Kammas form only 5% of the population of Andhra Pradesh, but 20% locally in the Krishna Delta, where they own 80% of the agricultural land. So despite their relatively small numbers at the state level, they occupy key positions in the economy and politics of Andhra Pradesh, and to a lesser extent of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. When the Telugu Desam Party won the elections in Andhra Pradesh in 1983, the Kamma control over state power helped them to consolidate their influence. They also dominate the Telugu media and cinema, which gives them socio-cultural preeminence. So these new attributes of dominance, which are not only material but also ideological, have a hegemonic character. However, this hegemony is challenged by the growing resistance of Dalits to caste and class oppression. And Kamma cultural domination has also been contested by the supporters of a separate Telangana state. Now, with the bifurcation of Andhrapradesh, which has been announced, Kamma's interests are likely to be harmed, especially in Hyderabad. So Kamma's early history is associated with Buddhism, which was very influential in the Krishna Valley in the 3rd century. According to epigraphical records, the Krishna Delta area at that time was called Kammanadu, and the main farming community who was living there was known as Kamma. But it's only after the 10th century that the name Kamma referred specifically to a Hindu agrarian caste. In the mid-19th century, the Britishers had built 2 big dams in coastal Andhra on the Krishna and Godavari rivers. And Kamma farmers benefited tremendously from the agrarian development that followed the introduction of canal irrigation in British-ruled Andhra. Even the middle peasantry that was paying taxes directly under the rivalry system became richer thanks to irrigation and the introduction of cash crops like sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton. In spite of this class differentiation, Kammas make conscious efforts to remain united by using caste as a social capital. They created their first caste association in the beginning of the 20th century, and they used the funds to provide scholarship to children from poor Kamma families and to build Kamma hostels in the cities. Education was really seen as a key to social mobility, and even small farmers were eager to send their children out of the village to study in English in the cities. But the rationalist anti-Brahmin movement also had a strong influence on Kammas. Some joined the non-Brahmin Justice Party, which was supported by the middle caste, asking for reservations in the Madras presidency. The Britishers accepted those demands to break the hegemony of Brahmins in the administration because they suspected them of being nationalists. The Andhra Communist Party was supported mostly by the Kamma peasantry, who saw in this new party a vehicle for political power, since the Congress Party was already controlled by the Reddys. Even in cities like Hyderabad, when they bought land, it was often speculative because they were very active in the real estate business. This flow of capital from Andhra to Telangana was not perceived by the local as a positive sign of economic development, but as exploitation of their poorer conditions. Kamma settlers in Telangana claim that they turned the desert green, which is a typical colonist narrative. In fact, they were looking for cheaper land and cheaper manpower. And when land was not available for sale, Kammas were doing what we call reverse tenancy by taking land on lease from poor farmers and lending them money. And when the local farmers were too indebted to their rich Kamma tenants, they had ultimately to yield their lands. In Hyderabad, people coming from Andhra had an advantage to access higher education and employment because they had benefited from English schooling in the region, which was long controlled by the Britishers. So this harsh competition from Andhra migrants led to the first separatist Telangana movement in 1969. Apart from medicine, engineering is the most common career option among the Kamma young generation. But since they are not entitled to reservations, they generally study in private colleges mostly owned by Kamma businessmen. And the cost of this educational institution is so high that other communities can hardly afford to study there. From 1995 to 2004, under the regime of Chandrababu Naidu, NTR's son-in-law, economic reforms and the disengagement of the state accelerated this phenomenon. The TDP Chief Minister Naidu became the darling of the corporate media and the World Bank. He even got a loan from the World Bank to develop Andhrapradesh. It was the first time that an international institution like the World Bank gave a loan to a subnational entity. Naidu made Hyderabad a showcase for his neoliberal policies. He focused on urban infrastructure and global growth sectors like the information technology. And he decided to develop high-tech city in the western periphery of Hyderabad, near Jubilee Hills and Kukatpalli, where most of the Kamma settlers live. So that led to a tremendous appreciation of their properties. Kamma businessmen who benefited from political patronage and privileged access to information for speculation for real estate could make a lot of profit by investing in those areas near high-tech city. So Chandrababu Naidu was very often accused of corruption, nepotism, and casteism because his development choices benefited so clearly to his own Kamma community. In 1999, a post-electoral survey showed that 87% of Kamma voters re-elected Naidu for a second mandate. It's under Naidu's regime of almost 1 decade that the Kamma caste really became hegemonic in Andhra Pradesh. I borrow here the concept of hegemony from Gramsci, which it refers to a kind of domination which is not only material but also ideological. By migrating to urban areas, Kammas started enjoying new attributes of dominance, not based on land ownership alone, but also control over the media, culture, and politics. After seizing state power, they were able to impose on the rest of society the neoliberal ideology that served their capitalist interests best. Between 1997 and 2004, 3,000 farmers committed suicide in Andhra Pradesh, mostly in the less developed regions of Telangana and Rayalaseema. The liberalization of agriculture led to an increase in the costs of production. So even in coastal Andhra, agriculture is not very profitable anymore. But Kammas generally don't sell their land when they migrate to the cities. For them, land is a very important symbol of prestige and power. So they prefer to give it on lease to tenants because they know that the land value is not going to decrease and agricultural incomes are not taxed anyway. So, for example, the land around Vijayamma in the Krishna Delta has appreciated tremendously since the announcement of the Telangana state, because there's a lot of speculation that Vijayamma might become the new capital of Andhra. The formation of Telangana might harm their interests in Hyderabad, but if Vijayamma becomes the new capital of Andhra, it's really a totally Kamma-dominated town. So they might very well repatriate their investments and make them strive there as well. And Kammas may also capture state power in Andhra. So the decline of Kamma dominance is not so much economic or even political, but mostly social and cultural because of the growing resistance to their cultural hegemony in Telangana and the social contestation of their caste domination by the Dalits, whom they have used as agricultural labor and oppressed for centuries. I just want to quote here the human rights activist K. Balagopal. After the Telugu Desam Party came to power, the ruthlessness of the repression on Maoists has increased manifold, and its class content is clearly revealed in the exchanges in the state legislature. In Vijayamma, Kammas form a class of bourgeois neo-rich who acquired their wealth in a short time by doing all kinds of businesses, including illegal activities.
మీరు కొత్తగా కనుక ఈ ఛానల్ని చూస్తున్నట్టయితే మీరు ఇప్పటివరకు మన ఛానల్ని సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకున్నట్టయితే వెంటనే ఛానల్ని సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేయండి. వెంటనే వీడియోని లైక్ చేసి షేర్ చేయండి. బెల్ ఐకాన్ని